Hello everybody, and welcome to our today's webinar, a sneak peek at being a TEFL teacher. My name is Sep. I'm going to be your host, and well, unsurprisingly, I am a TEFL teacher. And let's just wait about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute for more people to join. This is going to be a very fun and informative webinar, and we're going to go through A to Z of how does it even feel to be a TEFL teacher? What are the things to consider as a teacher? Maybe some mock lesson plans. And it's going to be very interesting and easy to follow. So hopefully you'll take away a lot from it, and after that you'll be inspired to become a TEFL teacher because it's not super scary. I promise you. Let's just wait another 30 seconds. I'll have a glass of water because I'll be speaking for roughly half an hour. All right. 20 more seconds and all right, let's pretty much get started. So first of all, before we dive into being a TEFL teacher, let's talk about TeacherWay. And this is why we're presenting this webinar today. TeacherWay was founded in 2003. It's a global leader in international teacher recruitment. It provides jobs, certifications, and professional development courses, and it hosts webinars and online job fairs throughout the year. For example, if after this video you were inspired to become a TEFL teacher, look no further than visiting TeachAway and check the TEFL courses that we have. Some of the material that today I'll present are derived from the TEFL courses offered by TeachAway, especially the OISI TEFL course, which is presented by University of Toronto, a top 20 university in the world. Amazing course and full of amazing tips. And I'll incorporate some of the findings from that course into this video. So now that we know what is TeachAway, let's, without further ado, talk more about the agenda today. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about, first of all, why you should become a TEFL teacher. And what kind of a TEFL teacher are you? Because not all teachers are made equal, and it's completely okay. Everybody is different. Then we're going to talk about the big four questions of any lesson, because you want to consider micro and macro situations, and why are you doing this lesson, and why are you planning this lesson for today or for that given student. We're going to talk about an overview of an English lesson structure. For example, how I run my lessons. You don't have to copy me, but it's just my knowledge, my learnings from TEFL course, and my own unique personality of how I run the lessons. And I'm going to do 3 mock lessons for you about work and office, fashion and clothing, and school education, because it's topic-based teaching, which I'm a big fan of, and we'll talk more about it during the presentation. We're going to talk about some resources for teaching materials, because especially right now, no matter if you want to teach online or offline, you'll need materials. And luckily, we live in the machine age and the age of the internet, so they're out there. And most of them are free, but some of them you may have to pay. But think about all the money you earn back by being a teacher. Then we're going to talk about tips of adapting to different student needs and levels. We're going to have a slide about the OIS University of Toronto TEFL course, which I definitely recommend if you plan to become a TEFL teacher. And we're going to have a case study about 2 of my students, and basically I tell about how I approach teaching them based on what I present to you in this presentation, and then a key takeaways and a short Q&A session. So if you're ready, we can get started. So why you should become a TEFL teacher? Think about it. There are about what, 8 billion people living in this world, and a majority of them don't speak English. And English is the language in the world. Me, I can speak English. You probably can speak English, but there are many people out there on every single corner on this planet, from the far east in Japan to the south of Argentina in Patagonia, that they and everything in between, that they would like to speak English, and they will need a dedicated, a qualified, and a smart teacher to guide them through the way. And that's what being a TEFL teacher is about. There is so much demand for English teachers because the majority of the world still doesn't speak English, and they need teachers. And they're willing to pay good money for it. So, I mean, let's be honest, money talks. We say that money doesn't guarantee happiness, but certainly it helps. So people want to be, why do people want to learn English? They want to learn English to communicate with the global world. We live in a very globalized society right now, online, in a globalized community, globalized world. Everything is becoming more integrated, and English is the language that people use for communication. Some people want to learn English to change their lives via through immigration to a different country, or to for getting accepted to a university in a country that they need to have English proficiency in, and that changes their world, their life, their future. And imagine how much money they're willing to spend to get to that goal. Think about all the people who want to travel the world, and the one language that pretty much everybody all over the world is expected to speak in any hospitality places, in hotels, restaurants, and such, is English. And this just goes on and on and on. So there is a big demand for English teachers, and whenever there is demand, it means competitive salary. Also, TEFL is a degree, is a certification you get once, and it will stay on your CV and your resume for the rest of your life. It's a one-time investment. Think about it. You invest some money, and you can have the fruits of this investment for decades to come. That's very, very big, and it's probably one of the best investments I've ever made. Also, travel opportunities. We all love traveling. Traveling changes you. Right now, I am talking to you from Poland, where I am a TEFL teacher a few hours every day. I wouldn't be able to live here with the beautiful view of the Lake Odra and talk to you if it wasn't for TEFL. TEFL changes life. TEFL allows you to travel, but we know travel is not cheap, but TEFL allows you to travel and earn money. So you basically kill two birds with one stone. You fulfill your desire of being a teacher, and you fulfill your desire of traveling. And traveling, why do we want to travel? Of course, we want to travel to see the world, but also the cultural immersion. When you live in a country, you pick up their culture, your language, their languages. You just see world from a different perspective, a perspective you probably had never considered before. I am now in Poland. Ja mówię po polsku. I speak Polish because of living in Poland. And the TEFL degree and certification is the reason that I learned a completely new language, one of the most difficult ones actually in all Europe. It grows you personally. You get out of your comfort zone. You have to adjust to new culture, new surroundings. You have to make new friends. You have to see cultural norms change. You are exposed to a completely different lifestyle. And while it can be a challenge initially, down the line, you're going to be so thankful for it, because you are going to become a much more well-rounded, wiser, smarter, and overall balanced individual. So all those reasons combined is why you should become a TEFL teacher, or at least consider it. Hopefully you become after this. Um, so now we talked about TEFL teachers, but not all teachers are equal. Everybody has their own personality. That's why even when you take a TEFL course, like the OEZ TEFL course, you're going to be taught, of course, some principles, both micro and macro. It goes to great details. As a teacher, you take those learnings, you try to observe them as much as possible, and then you add your own personality, your own strength to it. and create that unique profile of a teacher that you are. For example, me, I'm a bomb of energy. I'm a conversationalist. I am a very extrovert. I'm a very extrovert person, and I prefer to run lessons based on conversations and not books. But I'm flexible to my students' needs, which we'll talk about later. Another teacher could be opposite. Another teacher might prefer more structured approach. Another teacher might prefer to utilize a lot more technology and less normal conversation, like face-to-face or online conversation, and lead the lessons based on the videos, or the games that are online, or the activities that are online. The thing is, there's so many things available, and there's so much knowledge you're going to gain from the TEFL course, especially the OEZ TEFL course. But at the end of the day, you get all this knowledge and you have to add your own personality, because if you remove yourself and your personality, your student may as well learn English from AI. But the reason that the most effective way the reason that the richest people, the most wealthiest people, they still pay for teachers, is that the human to human interaction is still very, very important, and you need to let your human side come out. Think about what subjects and topics you're more knowledgeable about. Let's say if you are into teaching to young learners, try to learn into what makes children excited, what gets their attention. Again, think about your aspirations as a teacher, and how your personality, your knowledge, and your aspirations can match at a point where the demand and supply is met. Do you specialize in teaching a particular niche of a student? Do you like a specific age group? Do you like a specific, people who are studying for tests? Like, what are you enjoying? Because there is the realm of learning English and teaching English is so big. There are always very, very small sub niches. So as you of course learn the macro of teaching, deep down still think of, if one day you want to focus on a niche, to very, very specialize on one particular niche, what would it be? And never forget, probably the biggest thing is always have a plan. You go to a lesson, you have a plan of what this lesson is going to be about. What is the point of this lesson? Because you got to keep the conversation going. The student is paying for the lesson, and hopefully paying handsomely, which means good money. So you don't want to have too many long pauses. Now let's move forward. So think about it. Always think about how you can use these learnings and apply to your own personality to create that unique profile of a teacher that you could be. The big four questions of any lesson. What will we learn today? What is the point of this lesson? Okay, we try to learn something. What do we need to do in class to learn this, or to improve in that particular field? Why is today's learning important? Why should my students learn this? Why not another topic? Which again goes back to the student. And how does this lesson fit in a larger unit plan? Because once you have continuous classes with somebody, you need to create like a roadmap for them. What is the vision? Like, let's say today is April 12th. This is their English level A1. In 3 months, I want them to be between A2 and B1. I want them to have known and have learned 500 new vocabulary. I want them to make 30% less grammar mistakes, fewer grammar mistakes. All of those things you need to have in mind. So how does this lesson fit into a larger unit plan? So always think about those when you're planning your lessons. So now let's talk about overview of an English lesson structure. My style, again, you don't have to copy my style. Everybody is different. I've been a TEFL teacher for 9 years. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Everybody does. Anybody who tells you they don't, they're lying. I like teaching based on topic. I like to choose a topic for a particular lesson, and my goal in that lesson, why are we learning this, is I want to make the student and challenge the student to speak about this topic. I want to ask them challenging questions, get them to actually think creatively, and I want to press them so they can interact. So because my biggest goal as a teacher is that when my student is in a real life situation at a bar, at a restaurant, on the street, and somebody starts talking about this particular topic, they know how to engage. And for that, uh, one of the most important things is vocabulary. Um, any language, the three pillars are vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar. Some people have different opinions, which one is more important. In my opinion, vocabulary is most important. So what I do personally, I choose a topic, I create discussion questions about this topic, and I categorize those questions as uh, beginner questions, intermediate questions, and difficult questions. So we kind of ease into the more difficult and challenging questions towards the end when the student is more confident about the topic. I create a list of vocabulary about this particular topic. I categorize this vocabulary based on the type of words that they are. Are they nouns? Are they verbs? Are they adjectives? And I put like the verb or the noun or the adjective with a sample sentence using that in context. And I give it before the lesson to the student. So as we are having the discussion, this is speaking practice, which you're gonna probably see most people want to get better at speaking because that's the pillar of communication. They learn new vocabulary, they can use this vocabulary in context, and that will help for this vocabulary to actually stay in their mind and they don't forget it. And of course, we live in an age of technology. I choose a short video, can be as easy as YouTube. We're going to talk about it, about this topic to kind of get the ball rolling and ease into this topic and prompt this discussion with a student. This is my method. I do it for individual classes and I do it for group classes. And so far they like it. Knock on wood. And the lesson. So how does the lesson work? You discuss the discussion questions with your student with a back and forth debate. And honestly, it depends on their level, of course. With somebody who is in B1 or B2, intermediate, or C1, C2, you can be a lot more fluid because they know how to communicate, they will make some mistakes, but always try to keep the conversation flowing. Be like a journalist, demand your students to answer questions in full sentence. Even if you ask a yes or no questions, don't be happy with a yes or no answer. Oh, do you like horror movies? Yes. That's no answer. Yes, I like horror movies, for example. And urge them to use this vocabulary, a new vocabulary from the list you give them, and try to challenge them on their answers. So be like a journalist, get them out of their comfort zone because they may know the answer to the first basic questions, but the more you press them, the more they have to think about new sentence structures, new vocabulary, and that's where learning takes place. Never, in my opinion, don't interrupt them a lot because it kills their confidence. Use body language. So I do it very often when a student makes a mistake in terms of like past tense and present tense and says, let's say, I go instead of I went. This, think about the past. Or instead of say I go instead of I will go, future. Always have a notebook. As the student is talking, write down the trend of mistakes you notice, or a new word that it's on the tip of their tongue and they don't know, and you help them, because that's very important. Because as you classify your lesson, you want at least 2/3 of it to be conversation. At least that's my method. And the last third of it, or last 15-20 minutes of it, I kind of end the conversation and we do a review. And in this review, every note I've taken on the notebook from our conversation, the mistakes they made. Now, that's where I go into details with this student. Just, I didn't interrupt the student while he or she or they were talking because it kills their confidence. I mean, what is more frustrating than being interrupted every few seconds. Oh, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You want to give up. You don't want to speak anymore. Like, oh, you're like, oh, I will never be good at I will never be good in English. You never want to do that. So not use your hands and body language to notify and correct without interrupting all the time. Sometimes you have to interrupt, like if they're thinking of a word and they don't remember it, you help them. But also write down the mistakes, and the last 15-20 minutes go through the new vocabularies they've learned. Ask them to use this vocabulary and make sentences with them. If you notice um, a trend of a grammatical error, drill them. For example, if they keep using instead of saying I have never been blah blah blah, I say I was never la la la. Try to get them speaking and answering questions using I have never been. Have you ever been? For example, have you ever been in Antarctica? I've never been in Antarctica. Have you ever eaten 10 eggs at the same time? No. And try to do it fast so it goes into their subconscious. It's called drilling method, that you choose one particular part that the student is struggling with, and then you absolutely drill it by asking questions that the student has to use the same correct structure, even if sometimes the questions are a bit stupid, like have you ever eaten 10 eggs at the same time? And because then the faster they use it continuously, especially after this discussion, then it actually gets, I would say, tattooed into their brain and memory of how the new structure works. That's called drilling, that I do with grammatical errors, and if you want to teach a new grammatical concept. But within the sphere and the umbrella of the topic. For example, I'm just going to quickly go through this. Let's say I go through different discussion with while teaching English, work and office. How do you, like, this could be a discussion question. How do you prefer to work? Remotely or at the office? Why? You bring it to your student, they answer, then you give your feedback, and it's an exchange. They're going to struggle with words, they're going to make some mistakes. You have your vocabulary list ready. Like, for example, I've created a sample of it: coworker, all of these things, nouns, salary, verbs, and adjectives. Another question is, what are the differences between a job and a career? This one is more intermediate. So adjust your questions based on the level of your students. I'm mostly a conversation teacher, so this is why I go with this method. What qualities should a great boss have? What is the most frustrating aspect of job hunting? Get them to talk about these things that in real life they actually could talk about, because this is a cup of water. I can teach them I like water. How often in real life you say I like water? Everybody likes water. You want to talk about real life that they actually matter. Now for fashion and clothing, what is the most annoying fashion trend in your opinion? Why? Always ask why, because you want them to justify their answers. Do you agree with the saying that clothes don't make a man? Explain your position. What are your thoughts on tattoos and piercings? Depend, of course, always adjust based on your student, but don't be afraid to be a little controversial, because that's when the magic happens, that the student has to get out of their comfort zone and answer difficult questions, and that's where growth happens, in my opinion. Are they fashionable? What is the one fashion trend from the past you'd like to see popular again? Why? Again, nouns, verbs, and adjectives. School and education. What is especially since you'll be dealing with students from different cultures and backgrounds, what is the biggest issue with your country's education system? Does education equal intelligence? Explain. What are the biggest lessons you learned from all the years of formal education if you're dealing with adults in business settings? What was your favorite or least favorite topic at school? Why didn't you like it? Get them to talk about. The more personal you get, the easier actually it gets for them to talk. So the more personal the questions are, the more beginner they are. But the more wholesome and, I wouldn't say like philosophical they are, the more difficult they are. But again, you have the questions, you have a list of vocabulary, you have at least one piece of technology, one short video to actually show and kind of ease into this topic. So, and these videos are very easy to find on YouTube, for example. So think about resources for teaching material. We have, of course, on Teachable blog, many resources that you can find if you can check it out. TED Ed is one I really like. It kind of has very good inspirations to come up with topics and how to use this topic. Some of these resources are free, some are paid. YouTube is free, great place to find TED Talks even for videos like an advertising or anything that's like maximum 3-4 minutes to about a topic to get the to ease into it. You can always on YouTube. These days, AI is changing things. You can ask ChatGPT to help you with lesson planning, and once you give prompted that this is what you want to achieve in this lesson, this is the words you want them to learn, this is how you want to improve their uh, fluency and accuracy in a given topic. And one of my favorite ones, this one is paid, is Ellie.com. It was the ESL library, and now it's a compact product. Ellie, it has amazing, it's again based on topics, but also it gives you activities, it gives you a lot of games based on that topic. So if the student prefers a more structured approach as opposed to uh, just speaking and conversation, and especially if they're younger, then Ellie is a great resource because it's gamified. You can choose a topic, fill in the blanks, matching, and those things. And again, it all depends on your students. Some students, especially the ones that are busier, business professionals, they don't have time for homeworks. They want just a conversation, get practice, get more confident, have their mistakes fixed. Depend. Every student is different, but these resources kind of cover everything. And also, again, adjust based on the student's needs and levels. Get to know your student. Be actively interested in your students. Really, they feel it. And this is how they're going to stay with you. I have a student, he's from Japan. I've known him for 4.5 years. We met one time in person before COVID, and then pandemic happened and our lessons went online, and then he went back to Japan. He was 8 years old. He's now almost 13 years old. We have lessons every week still because we became more than just teachers, students, we became true friends. See if your student is introvert or extrovert, adjust based on that. See if their priority is fluency, which means speaking without pausing too much and without breaks, and confidently without having to think all the time, or accuracy, if they want to be 100% accurate with grammar every time they speak, with the wording, with pronunciation every time they speak, because some people have just different priorities. So these are the things you need to figure out about a given student. Are they like, what are their interests? Are they looking focused on fluency or accuracy? Eventually you want both, but some have specific focus. Are they extroverts that they naturally talk, or are they introverts where you have to prompt them to talk, give more materials, and kind of get them, give them more of a push to speak. Why is your student learning English? If somebody is learning English to pass an IELTS, you better focus a lot more on structured material and grammar. Like, this is not my specialty, for example. But if somebody just wants to improve their English fluency, so for when they travel, then it's different. Conversation is more important, vocabulary is more important. So again, what are their learning goals? And in all of those, consider their age, culture, and previous experience in learning English. Get them talk about what they didn't like from their previous teachers, and how you can use that in your advantage to be the best teacher they've ever had. Case studies. These are two of my students. Micha, I know him for 3 years. He's 14 years old. He's very mature man. He's a very mature guy. He likes to be treated like an adult. I remember early on, I kind of treated him like a child, and he told me like I want to be treated like an adult. And since I listened to him, I am managing our lessons based on what he wants as a teenager that is older than his ID in a way, in terms of the brain and development. He likes to talk about chess, sports, culture. So I cultivate our lessons based on the topics he likes, but also I discuss serious matters with him because he's already at a good conversation level. He wants to talk about serious things, and he wants to be treated and valued like an intellectual, and I give him that. And he said this is something that none of my other teachers ever gave me. And he says his priority, he never wants to like immigrate to a English speaking countries. His priority but is to learn the real English spoken on the streets, and not necessarily on the courts, on the courts of law. So again, when he tells me what he wants, I adjust my strategy, my bigger plan for him based on his needs. Another one is Mejena. She's a lawyer, has a very busy life. She has an office. There are many lawyers that work under her. She's married, has two daughters. She loves talking about her work and family. So I think about, and of course, she has no time for homework. She has no time for assignments. She has no time for, lots of sheets for her to review because she's so busy. She has clients. She has to drive by car to different cities to meet clients. And let's say her biggest mistake is, and her biggest problem is that she has to translate everything from her native language to English before speaking, and it kind of slows her down and causes a lot of mistakes because the native language, which is, let's say, Polish, has a very different structure than English. All of this I consider, and I adjust my strategy when teaching her compared to what I teach to Micha, because I know she likes family, she likes to talk about her work. So any topic that even we talk about, even if the topic is about fashion, even if the topic is about education, I kind of relate it to her family, relate it to her work, because that's how I know she is more. That's the way I can get her comfortable in speaking and talking and sharing and becoming more fluent, which is her priority in English. So again, get to know your students, see what they like, what they don't like, and adjust your lesson plans based on this using the principles you've already learned. Now let's talk about the OEZ University of Toronto TEFL. There's so much good material in there, really. So these are the units that you can see. Unit 1, Introduction to English Language Teaching, just the macro of what it feels. What is English and how does it compare to other languages and language families? So it gives you a very good knowledge about just the English language, which, by the way, your students are going to love it when you talk about it, because they're like, oh, this person knows their business. Unit 2 is about teaching language skills from speaking, listening, writing, reading, grammar, vocabulary. Unit 3 is about structuring and delivering lessons. It goes through very structured approach. And again, as I said, you take what you learn. Some students require very structured approach, require very, strict, step-by-step plan. Some students prefer a more lax style, but Unit 3 prepares you for everything. Unit 4 is to managing your teaching environment, because I work privately, for example, so it's just one-on-one. But sometimes if you get TEFL, you could be working in big classrooms, and that could come with its own challenges. So it really helps you manage your teaching environment. Unit 5 about resource of materials. We briefly talked about them. And Unit 6 about digital technology in classroom. These days, videos, audios, they're all very, very popular. And if you know how to utilize them, it's going to help you so much. It's going to make your life so much easier, and it's going to entertain your students even more. You can take specializations based on who you will teach to. It could be, teaching English to Korean speakers, to Arabic speakers, to Mandarin speakers, teaching test preparation English, teaching English to young learners. Again, early slide, what kind of a teacher do you want to be? And based on that, you can choose your specialization. And then, of course, there are units on online teaching and learning, which is very popular right now. Teaching abroad, just the cultural challenges you will face. For example, it really helped me to learn Polish, because now I understand why Polish students make some of the mistakes that they do, because I know the difference between Polish language and English language. One funny fact, in English language, there are two ways to say to and second. In Polish, there are 47 ways. So now you know. Well, and this really helped, So again, I'm teaching abroad about the culture shock, about relocating, even not just necessarily the teaching part of it, but also the actual life part of it. And of course, learner-centered lessons, creating lessons centered around the students and tailored for them, because that's gonna, show that you are a very caring and a unique teacher. And once a student likes you and kind of creates that connection with you, you're good, and you're going to keep this student for a long time, and they're going to refer their friends, families, and acquaintances to you as well. So key takeaways: recognize what type of a teacher you are, because it helps you adopt a teaching style, a unique teaching style, what makes you and a great teacher. 2, Get to know your students. Adjust your teaching style best to fit the student's specific learning style and needs. And third, make the lesson exciting by discussing relatable, real-life, useful material. Again, this can change. Some students may prefer something structured by books, but this is just a rule of thumb. Again, you have your judgment, you know better based on every case. So the student can actually relate to you and chat about it and feel like, oh, I can use this conversation what I learned today in my real life. So those three are the three main key takeaways that I wish you take from this webinar. Wow. Oh, we went quite over. So because this is a lot of things to cover, but yeah, this will be just a short Q&A. So let's see the questions that come up. I'm gonna answer a couple of questions. Okay. How do I create a balance between who I am as a teacher and my students' needs and specific learning style? Well, in business, we say customer is always right. In teaching, always think about your student first, especially if it's a private student. So if you had to give one priority is the students and what they enjoy and how they learn best. Are they visual learner? Do they prefer structure? Do they prefer thing? And even if you're a conversationalist, let's say, but your student prefers more structure, prefers books, prefers homeworks, then you adopt your students. This is the most important thing because you want them to look forward to these lessons all the time. And the only way they look forward to these lessons and they keep rebooking you, and every booking means more money, is if they feel they're understood and appreciated by you and you care about them and what helps them learn. So keep your personality, but again, try to adjust if you're dealing with a one-on-one student situation to your students' needs. Next one. Do you recommend reading up on the language of my student, the mother tongue? This is very interesting. I mean, it doesn't hurt if you have time. Any language is very popular, very unique and very interesting. I had a tradition before that every time I wanted to go to a new country, I would pick up the very basic, like top 20 phrases in that language. That's how I know, like, for example, some Japanese when I went to Japan a few years ago. And it really helps because, first of all, the students will get very excited to know that you were curious about to learn to research their language, and then it's going to actually give you some hints about the mistakes and the challenges, the mistakes they could make and the challenges that lie ahead for you. And you can actually use Google or even AI and see, for example, let's say, what is the biggest challenges that, I mean, we just talked about Japanese learners face when teaching English, and it gives you a good insight and feedback that you can use to create the lesson more unique and enjoyable, and make yourself stand out from the pools of so many other teachers, because you have to give your student a lesson. Why pay you? Why choose you than all other English teachers out there? Well, we're already over. I just want to thank you again for taking the time and being here, and become a TEFL teacher, because not only you will change your students' lives, your own lives will change too in a fabulous way. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out the OIZ TEFL course on Teachaway, and until next time.